Chapter 6. The Young Shaman Foundation is born. The call to serve was ever so strong. I could feel it within me, a readiness and a steadiness. When I first got back from my time in Peru, I was clear about my vision. I knew that what I had experienced had left me changed forever. I also knew that this change was essential to step outside of the man-made paradigm and into the ever-expansive state of connection, to return to the wisdom of our ancients, to seek a way of living and being that was harmonious, to be a steward of the earth. This is what I journaled in 2015. This year I accepted the call to serve my people, to let go of ego and open my heart to greater love. I accepted the path of a shaman, and now I give myself wholeheartedly to serve all on this planet. Now on the edge of insanity, I know that my initiation is close. My senses are heightening, visions increasing, dreams intensifying. My capacity to empathize is increasing, and so too is my ability to read people and see their inner beauty and sense their pain. I can feel energy stronger than I ever have. I can bring it from the sky and from the earth, and I can give it out to the world. My dance is coming from deep within, and I go so deep that I drift into another state of being as my body moves without the mind. This dance is my expression, my inner world, and my healing. It has taken me 26 years of existence in this world to realize that I learn through feeling, not through thinking. I am a body worker, and I love to connect people deeply. For my whole life, these gifts have been suppressed, for society favors intelligence and lives in a material world. These factors cause our schooling system and our whole upbringing to be directed towards the ideal. I feel that if I had been brought up in a time where our gifts were discovered from a young age and fostered, then I would be light years ahead of where I am now. Instead, I am unlearning everything society taught me, shifting through the trauma and embodied fears just to do my work. The work I was born to do. This is why I am so passionate about helping youth to discover their gifts and work with them, whatever age they are. The earlier they begin to work with their gifts, the more they grow and thrive, the greater their ripple on this earth. So in 2012, I had a mind-altering experience. It was like a seed was planted. One morning after a double night shift as a paramedic, so essentially no sleep for 2 days, I walked through my front door. And it was like something dropped from the sky into my mind, into my consciousness. It was the call to serve, but more specifically, it was a call to start something big. The first vision of the Young Shaman Foundation was seeded in me, and the work of healing the people and supporting them on their journey of becoming a shaman. Of course, at this point in my life, I had not fully grasped what that all meant. But needless to say, I jumped straight to it. I knew that it was time to really understand what it was, to be a shaman and to heal the spirit of a person. For the next 2 years I made it my part-time job to research shamanism and alternative medicine. On top of this, I was also studying part-time to be a counsellor. I still kept doing the paramedic thing, long shifts, trauma and tragedy. However, this newfound vision that was seeded in me kept my fire burning. Now there was more out there, more than the medical world, even more than the alternative health world. There was the shamanic world. Then 3 years on, the vision finally took root. At the time, my passion and borderline obsession of rites of passage and initiation, particularly the initiation of child to adult. There was something missing though, the name of this foundation. I had the logo, the symbolism and the vision, but still no name. I accepted that this work could not grow to reach the people until it had a name. I knew the readiness would intricately be connected to the clarity with the name. So one day, I went for a walk in nature, and I said to myself, "Well, my spirit, I will not continue with this work until the name comes to me." Of course, when the time is right, things can unfold pretty quickly. Within moments, the name came, the Young Shaman Foundation. At first I shuddered. In fear I said no, but it was so loud and clear. I knew that it was time. It was time to step fully into this work. And so I did. For months I worked day and night creating the vision, the content, the website, researching and of course continuing with the inner work. I honed in on the facilitation aspect of the work, finding the training that would enable me the skills to support people through big transitions. It was incredible that everything I searched for came to me. The rite of passage facilitated training, the shamanic healing training, training to facilitate healing spaces, all of it. After a year of initiations, of learning the business world and building the website and the vision, I put it out into the world. I launched the Young Shaman Foundation online with its own website and social media presence. It challenged me to the core, and somehow I had become my work. It had consumed me. In some ways I had grown, and in other ways I had become so passionately attached to this vision that I could not support my own friends or even myself. I was working tirelessly, without breaks. My massage business had struggled immensely, and with no clients I had no income. My savings from 3 years of overtime shifts as a paramedic were starting to dry up, and on top of this, the young people were not coming. They were not receiving the call. A year of sole dedication to this work and dwindling savings with no holidays, I was becoming unwell. Love brought me home. There is a beauty to this story, because the journey of struggle and growth had given me an immense capacity to hold myself and inevitably to hold another. One cold night in Melbourne, I was in the kitchen of my share house. I had an experience that was much like the vision I had had for the Young Shaman Foundation, that had dropped from the skies into my consciousness. This time, it was my realization of being in love. This person just so happened to be in the room next to me. She was staying temporarily. This woman felt warm and friendly to me. But when this realization of a deep spiritual connection came to me, I could not turn away. In full vulnerability, I turned to her and asked her if she would share a cacao by the fire with me. It was in this moment she could feel it too. We sat by the fire with our cacao, and in that moment we just seemed to know that our souls had recognized each other, and so it was, a love written in the stars. She had arrived at my doorstep weeks prior. I was the one that opened the door and welcomed her into my home, to stay, and now I was welcoming her into my heart, to stay. After a passionate night, she turned to me at first light and said, "Would you like to come into the desert with me?" In some way, I knew this was our destiny, and without hesitation I said yes. I have been feeling to go into the desert. In perfect synchronicity, everything fell into place. We now shared my room, and we shared the vision of going into the desert. We had both felt April 2016 to be the time to go, and within a few months we had also been invited to sit in a women's culture camp near Uluru in April 2016. The desert trip. The morning of our departure, I wake, the winds are warm, they are blowing from the desert. I can feel the call, feel the power, and it both excites me and terrifies me. Car loaded with at least 3 months of dry food from our favourite organic supermarket, 50 litres of water, jerry cans, winch, and all the essential camping gear into our 1996 Toyota 4-wheel drive. We have been gathering our equipment for months, from family op shops and stores, and now it is time to begin our journey into the desert. For the next 5 months, we not only negotiate the roads, but the camp spots, camping at free spots along the way. But more often than not, camping at no spots, off in the bush, wherever we can find. Each night we get to our destination, set up the tent and cook our veggies on the fire, and then in the morning we pack up the tent and get on our way. A constant rhythm that is now our daily routine. Sleeping under the stars in a swag, being with the elements, feeling my bare feet on the earth. I am home. After a week of travel, we arrive into the Red Centre. Our women's culture camp is near Uluru. We learn a lot about non-linear time here. We wait, together, until the land and the elders are ready for us. And eventually, we are welcomed in. This is sacred women's country, a place for ceremony. It has been a long time since women have gathered here for ceremony, and we are very privileged. Out of respect for people and place, I will not share what unfolded in this ceremony. What I can say is that this ceremony changed me on a cellular level. It would take me 3 years to fully fathom what had been passed on to me. I would be pondering this and remembering this for the rest of my life. In this same timeless space and capacity, my partner and I continued on our journey, listening and following our way across the country. Profound connection to earth and spirit became the norm. With little contact with mainstream culture, let alone people of any sort, we journeyed with all of our senses. Immediately after the gathering in Uluru, we received from a male elder the Dreamtime story of the 7 sisters. As above, so below, the Pleiades star constellation was said to be a songline deeply embedded in the land. It was not long before we realized we were following this very songline. Our trip became a modern-day walkabout. Each day was filled with profound realizations. It was as if spirit could speak directly to me now. I felt filled with spirit, from the land, from the ancestors, from the elders I met. Everywhere felt so alive, with so many messages. Many days felt like they were outside of time, often feeling altered as if we'd travelled across the land. It had us doing some pretty crazy in a women's circle now in Kununurra, with the same women who we sat with in Uluru, minus a few. A crazy mission arose. My partner and I had been hearing about a senior lawman who was in Alice Springs. We both felt the same wild idea. We need to go back to the desert. Within a few days, we were traversing back 1,700 kilometres to Alice Springs. On the off chance, we might get to meet this man. It was on this drive that something came through, something profound that would set me on the journey of becoming a facilitator and a holder of ceremony. Earth dance. It was a clear picture, bringing people together in ceremony, to sit in circle, to meditate and to dance as a way of returning back to the land. And so it was. Earth dance was conceived in motion on a very long and straight stretch of road into the central desert. At this point in time, I wasn't sure if we were going back to Alice Springs to meet with this elder or to create Earth Dance. There was no logic to this part of the trip. Our decision to go back into the desert sure was bold and big. We would be adding 3,400 kilometres to our trip, not knowing if we would meet with this elder and not knowing if we could start Earth Dance. Nothing was known really. On the first day we made that fateful call to see if the elder would meet with us. I remember my heart was pounding. I was so afraid that we might have just travelled all of this way for, well, nothing. They answered. They said yes. Come tonight and bring some food, whatever you mob eat. This meeting led to so many things. It led to us having permission to camp on sacred women's country. It led us to travel to new places, and it led us to a lot of knowledge that we would not have found any other way. That crazy idea to travel back into the desert was the most important decision we could have made for the whole journey. This connection here saw the beginning of my work, which was seated in the women's culture camp near Uluru, and it was beginning to come alive in me. Within a few weeks we were settled into the community, and Earth Dance was up on flyers and posted around town. As my partner and I sat on sacred women's land, we could begin to create and birth the very first Earth Dance ceremony, which was chosen to be a women's-only space. The set list was created, the journey was planned, and just like that, it all came to fruition. Women came, and I got to plummet myself into a new role as facilitator. It was a beautiful night of witnessing the power of woman, and we didn't stop there. In the course of our journey, we would host Earth Dance 3 more times across the country. Our next journey was in collaboration with a local musician, a newfound friend. Collaboration became a key part of this unfolding. Our next destination after Alice Springs was yet again the Kimberley, Kununurra. We were back to support in a newly formed festival. People had come from all around Australia to be a part of it. The night we hosted Earth Dance was another memory that would stay with me, a clear remembrance of the power of coming together for ceremony. As the sun set and the full moon rose, we were bare feet on the earth, with the famous Dr. Didge, a senior lawman, playing clapsticks and singing, and a group of willing travellers contributing with their own sounds and instruments. The whole dance was with live improvised music, where we were all playing in harmony. As the ceremony and song came to a natural close, I stood there, awestruck. Somehow, completely untrained, I had managed to create and facilitate a live sound journey and dance led by the clapsticks of an elder and filled with didgeridoo from a famous musician. I had somehow found a way to invite people into their voice, and somehow we all just harmonized. This was a profound learning of the power of gathering in harmony with the 3 sacred languages of voice, movement, and instrument. The Kimberley is the kind of place that heats you up, leaves you awestruck by its wild beauty, and sends you on an emotional journey all at once. It is evoked by the stunning gorges, the remote waterfalls, the wide rivers, the ancient rocks, and ancient crocodiles, not to mention the intense heat. One of my favourite memories was being on the boat with the women from the Uluru gathering. I call them the desert women. I felt in awe of life, that I could step blindly into a journey that has no timeline, no expectations, and no planned destination. I was in awe with the fact that I could find my way here to this very moment in time, where I'm on a boat in rugged gorges with no one else around, swimming naked with the sun shining, and not to mention, by now it is the middle of winter. Whilst this place was a bit of a paradise after many kilometres and months of being on the road, my partner and I were feeling the pull to leave the tribe and continue on our journey. Next up was the famous Gibb River Road, with river crossings, windy rocky roads, and lots of four-wheel drive adventures. We were a little bit shocked that we now had to share camping spots with others. Even having to stay at specific campsites was not the norm for us. This was a well-touristed place. By now my emotions were rising as I just wanted to get away from the people, to feel like I was back in the wild again. All the same, there were still so many beautiful places to see, and I was now learning to share this beauty with other tourists without too much discomfort from their clicking cameras and thirst for the outback experience. We made it across to Broome pretty quickly. Neither of us were fond of having to share our space with the camera-happy tourists. We also discovered that there was really no way to walk into the bush a few metres off the road and pitch a tent. So instead of finding a camp before sunset, we just kept driving into the unknown. We got into Broome about midnight, and again we could not bear the idea of camping with the masses, so we decided to take a right turn, travel some four-wheel drive tracks, and see if we could find this bush camp that we had discovered in our outdated camping book. Now this wasn't one adventure that I did not consider exciting. It was too uncomfortable to be exciting. It was more on the terrifying end. Driving at midnight on four-wheel drive tracks was not much fun. Somehow we found this campsite and were relieved to see that at least there were a few other people here, for safety's sakes. By now it was about 1 a.m. in the morning, and we had been on the road since about 7 a.m. the previous day. We decided the safest place to sleep would be on a roof rack, instead of in the tent. Things felt so different here. It was hot, humid, and there were so many mosquitoes. That wasn't all, however. We became aware that there were some bigger creatures around. We heard them in the water next to where we were parked. I settled myself, but my partner was pretty convinced that crocodiles were going to come and eat us. It was decided that we should sleep in the car with the doors closed. It was extremely uncomfortable, but we managed, and weren't we relieved when that sun came up. Broome was an interesting place. The only thing that kept us there really was the good illegal camp spot we found and the great cafes. Needless to say, we didn't stay long. I found myself feeling restless. I think I could feel home calling me back. We were both feeling a little uncomfortable being close to a town and around those tourist creatures again, so we headed south down the coast. I had big hopes and dreams for the west coast. I'd imagined beautiful quiet beaches and endless camping spots. These dreams didn't come into fruition at all. At every place we stopped there were rangers moving us on and threatening to fine us for not sleeping in our overpriced caravan park. So we ended up making it down the coast to Perth pretty quickly. It was feeling colder and colder each night, and I could feel that our journey was coming to an end sooner than expected. Thankfully we did find reprieve when we arrived into Perth. We stayed with my sister, who was so generous and so happy to host us. We stayed a little while, long enough to run another earth dance. We chose to make it another women's only space and was gifted a space to make it all possible. And just like that, another beautiful ceremony was created. Again, it felt so good to witness the beauty of the feminine unfurling into feeling and sweet release. I was in love with it all. In many ways, this was the end of our journey. Now we had 3,500 kilometres to get back across the country to our Melbourne home. Nights camping were cold now. It was starting to feel a bit rough, as it was the beginning of August and we were in the south of Australia. It was pretty amazing though. We just traversed over 10,000 kilometres around Australia, met with elders, created earth dance and seeded many connections in the Kimberley and the desert. I was now more determined than ever to facilitate and create ceremony for earth connection. When we returned home, I was still faced with the same internal and external struggles that I had when I left. Earning money as a healer, giving away my power, feeling restless. The one thing that had changed, though, was my relationship to nature. In time, this would be the one thing that would teach me the ways of my nature and my authentic stance in the world. I also had another gift, and that was earth dance. Journaled in 2014. I thought that I was guided by an intrinsic source that kept me true to my purpose and path in this world. But the more I come to learn of this earth, the more I am beginning to see that I am simply moving to the beat of the earth, a beat that involves every person, every animal, every plant, every particle. We are all moving to the rhythmic beat of the earth. It is when we do not move to this beat that we become ill with physical symptoms and experience decreased energy and sadness. This earth is more than physical. It is all energy in different forms.